Let's start with the news about Josh Rosen, though, because I'm not a news-breaking type of guy, but I had this on January 10th. Everybody wants to get credit. Before Schefter, go check the timestamps. Josh Rosen to the Giants, had it on January 10th. I was first on Twitter. This is important stuff. So it sounds like Arizona's going to be getting Kyler Murray.
You bragged to your friends about being first on Twitter.
Yeah, Rick Riley style. That was what he went like hashtag first on Twitter back in the day. It's a joke, Mike. I think it sounds like it's happening. I think it's the right move.
I think they are going to draft Kyler Murray when it's all said and done. I think there's enough smoke that I believe that's where they're going to end up. And at that point, Josh Rosen's trade value will only be going downhill. He's only going to go downhill from here.
But is that true, though?
So if Kyler Murray steps in from day one and is your starter, it's only going to go downhill from here.
I don't know if that's truly
because of how important it is to have a quarterback on the rookie contract.
Okay, so by the day, Rosen's contract is shrinking, therefore less. Okay, that part is fine. I do think the idea of having Kyler Murray in camp and Josh Rosen in camp isn't that big of a deal. We've seen the Sam Bradford thing happen before the season where he got flipped for a first-round pick from the Eagles to the Vikings. I mean, crazier stuff has happened. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to go into the season with Rosen. But I want to discuss Rosen's trade value here. Okay. Last year, he goes number 10 overall. Some people had him number 1 on their QB draft board. How much does one not great season in Arizona, in one of the worst situations in the NFL, if not the worst, how much does that affect his value? I say not so much. I can't believe that the NFL is talking about a potential third-round pick for him at this point.
I think it still impacts you pretty highly, in my mind. If you're going into, say, you're the Cardinals last season, you're going into that draft, and I tell you the quarterback you're going to draft is going to suck as a rookie. He's going to be very bad, and there's no sugarcoating it. Josh Rosen was very bad. He was one of the lowest-grade quarterbacks in the NFL as a rookie. Not a lot of even highly graded games throughout his season. I tell you that they're probably not drafting him at 10. You're saying, if I know he's going to suck as a rookie, just playing the odds there. Usually guys who go on to be Hall of Famers, very good quarterbacks, at least show something as a rookie, or at least good at times as a rookie.
Pull out your rookie year tweets.
Yes.
Pull it out. You're looking for it. All right, because I want to discuss this. I have a theory on it, and it's one we can't completely prove yet, but we're going to prove it. I think Rosen can bounce back because, as I was tweeting the other day, players don't change. The situations change more than players, right? I don't think Rosen has changed as a player. He came in as a flawed prospect whose highs were high and lows were low. Much like an Eli Manning. You put him behind a rough offensive line, it's going to be bad. You don't give him a good set of receivers, it's going to be bad. Can he make NFL throws? Yes. Do I think some evaluators overrated Rosen because when he does it right, it looks pretty? Absolutely. Throws a nice dig route, looks the part, all that fun stuff. That part's overrated. Now, your tweet recently about the guys that have been at the lowest of the low, I thought was interesting, but I think there's an explanation, even perhaps within the PFF data.
So here, quarterbacks that rookie season graded below 60 overall. Josh Rosen, and had actual legitimate time. Spent, took, I think it was 225 or 250 dropbacks, something like that. Josh Rosen, C.J. Beathard, Deshaun Kaiser, Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Blake Bortles, E.J. Manuel, Nick Foles, Brandon Weeden, Christian Ponder, Blaine Gabbert, Josh Freeman, Mark Sanchez, Matt Stafford, Trent Edwards, Matt Leinart, Bruce Gradkowski, and Vince Young. So,
friend Bruce,
if you're looking for hits out of that list, Matt Stafford.
Let me see the list. I need to see it.
Jared Goff, Derek Carr, maybe Nick Foles, but Nick Foles not even for his original franchise. Obviously for his original franchise, but went elsewhere, was not a hit really in the sense of the word. So,
but here's how I think you could sort those guys. So it's good. I mean, not a lot of guys dug these guys out. Here's what I'm going to say: Jared Goff dug himself out of the hole. Derek Carr dug himself out, and Matthew Stafford also did. You said Nick Foles. Yeah, he's kind of hit or miss. We'll see what happens. But as far as Goff, this is where I think the college data matters. When you go back to college, Jared Goff had an elite grade. He had some top-notch grades. We evaluated him as a first-round prospect. That, to me, trumps the bad first year. Derek Carr, we actually went and graded his senior year. He had a 90-plus PFF grade. We still we have to do more of his career. So I think that trumped his bad first season. Matthew Stafford, I don't know where he would have graded. We don't have that information. But when you compare him to C.J. Beathard, was not great in college in our numbers. Deshaun Kaiser was not. Blake Bortles would have been, I think, okay. EJ Manuel, no way he would have been good in our numbers. I watched him. That is last year. Brandon Whedon, okay. Christian Ponder, no. Blaine Gabbert, no. Josh Freeman, maybe. Sanchez, maybe. My point is, a lot of these guys had, I think you defer back to the college guy more so than what happened that rookie season. And that's why it's like, all right, don't write off Goff, don't write off Carr, don't write off Stafford.
Yeah.
I think Rosen is on that borderline of those other guys, but a step below them. I think he still has something to offer the NFL.
But I do think, so the guys that ended up being hits from that group, Jared Goff was the #1 quarterback drafted in that draft. Matt Stafford was the #1 quarterback drafted in that draft. Their college evaluation was surefire sort of franchise guy. The Derek Carr is probably the one outlier, but he's been up and down over the course of his career. Really only had one good season where he graded well for us, and he came from Fresno State. Simplistic offense. You can sort of see why it might have been rough for him out of the gate as a rookie. Josh Rosen played for Jim Moore at UCLA. Pro-style offense. Guy who was coaching in the NFL, then went back to college. He should have been, theoretically NFL ready from that standpoint. And then you take into the fact that 5 teams in the top 10 last year needed quarterbacks and passed on Josh Rosen. 5 different NFL teams said Josh Rosen's not our #1 guy.
He was the fourth quarterback off
the board. Broncos passed on a QB, probably needed one. Other teams, Giants needed QB, said no, not Rosen. So all these teams are saying no, we don't think he's a franchise guy or our franchise guy. I think at that point there's a lot of sort of red flags going off to where I'm going to take my best option, which is going with Kyler Murray and try to recoup any sort of value I can here because, like I just said earlier,
for Arizona,
it's only going to go downhill.
For Arizona, I think it's a no-brainer.
I'm not writing him off, but if I'm another NFL franchise looking at him, I'm not sure. Like, if your ceiling is Derek Carr out of this, I'm not sure that's enough for me. I don't think that's that's not a great ceiling.
There's 2 ways to look at this whole thing, right? We talked about Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford coming out of it. Their peaks are like they barely scratch the top 8 quarterbacks. Goff was in the top 8 at times for us, but he's very well protected by the system. Derek Carr had the 1 year where he was about 8th in the NFL for us. Stafford's had 1 or 2 years as a top 10 quarterback, despite a great skill set. So you could look at that list and say, yes, these guys became viable, pretty good NFL quarterbacks, but they never became top 8 guys. And top 8 is just this random arbitrary cutoff, but there's probably about 8 guys that do separate themselves in the NFL at any given time. So if you're the Cardinals, the debate is Kyler Murray a potential top 8 guy, whereas the percentage of Josh Rosen being one of those guys we think is
low,
really low. That's a no-brainer. My question is, if you're the Washington Redskins or the New York Giants, would you give up a mid-first round pick for Josh Rosen? I instinctively say yes, mostly because if he does hit, the payoff is just so much greater than the risk of giving up the first rounder.
You can evaluate based off of the rookie season. Yes, it was a terrible situation. I don't think that means throw it out the window, in my opinion. It's still something, it's still a part of his evaluation. When his evaluation wasn't even surefire coming out, when there were big red flags coming out in his game, when he was a very imperfect quarterback coming out, for him not to hit the ground running in any sort of way, shape, or form is another red flag to me, where second round, I think, is viable. I'm not going to go top of the second round, middle second round, but I'm not going to go and say, give me a first, make him my franchise guy now after what I saw from him a season ago.
All right, that's fair. Maybe I'm overrating him a little bit. I don't know. I mean, look, and here's how I looked at him coming out. Eli Manning-ish.
I just think you got to set your sights higher than he could turn into Derek Carr,
I understand.
You got to set your sights higher than that if you're really one of these teams that needs QB.
But even when he was coming out last year, I said, okay, if you could have an Eli Manning career where in 10 years you're going to have 2 kind of peak seasons where you could, if everything's, you've got the right supporting cast and all that stuff, you could make a playoff run. You're going to have some inconsistency. You probably won't make the playoffs a bunch of other times. I think that's worth the first round risk. I don't know if anything's changed on that end. Josh Rosen still can make NFL throws, still struggles outside of structure, still isn't the most accurate guy in the class and the best decision maker. All that stuff hasn't changed. Nothing's changed about that, other than the extra year on the contract and the fact that, and then just weighing the risk. And it's you and me weighing the risk a little bit different, I think, as far as what his top end could be, because I don't think his top end has changed.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it's the top. I just don't think you're betting, like I said, I'd set my sights higher than what his top end could be at this point.
If you're Arizona, you're good taking a second round pick, third round pick?
Yeah, I'd take a second round for him at this point.
Okay.
Or you could just,
instinctively,
I don't think there's anything also wrong with if they don't trade them and go into camp with both.
Here's the alternative.
People are going to say, oh, you don't want to split the locker room. I think that's BS.
I don't care about split the locker room stuff. Again, if you're a franchise quarterback cannot handle a little bit of competition and drama, then what are you even doing here?
You weren't going to make it anyway.
Here's my thing though: if I'm Washington or say Miami, and say Miami's not on the 2-year tank plan that they're hinting toward, the alternative is draft Daniel Jones. You hope Dwayne Haskins falls.
Start Ryan Fitzpatrick
or Drew Lock. Well, I'm saying when you're looking for your next quarterback, if it's Josh Rosen versus Dwayne Haskins versus Daniel Jones versus Drew Lock versus Will Grier, I think Rosen's the best guy of that bunch. It's Rosen and Haskins, and then I would definitely take Rosen over.
I still think the
Lock
unknown though
Jones.
has some sort of value in that Drew Lock could come to the NFL and it looks different from year one, whereas Josh Rosen, we know he came to the NFL and it was bad year one. I think that sort of unknown is still, in my mind, more valuable than.
Oh man, if you put Locke,
I'm not saying I'm drafting either in the first round. I'm just saying if I have a second round pick where the Dolphins are, I'd rather have Drew Lock there. Now he's probably not going to be there, but I'd rather have Drew Lock there than Josh Rosen.
If you put Locke in the situation that Rosen was in last year,
ugly.
That would have been even more of a disaster. All right, it's good discussion about Rosen and his value.